Story Survive.
Welcome back to Story Survive. We've reached the final chapter of the Enfield Poltergeist, the conclusion of a story that began nearly 50 years ago in a modest house in North London. The end of a mystery that has never been fully solved. The final attempt to answer the question that has haunted believers and skeptics alike. What really happened at 284 Green Street? By the end of 1978, the investigation had essentially concluded. The investigators had withdrawn. The media had moved on to other stories. The Hodgson family was finally alone in their house for the first time in over a year. The phenomena had decreased dramatically. The constant activity that had characterized 1977 had faded. Normalcy, or at least something approaching normalcy, was beginning to return. But the case was far from over. The mystery was far from solved. In fact, the most important part of the story was just beginning. Because it's what happened after the investigation ended that would ultimately define the legacy of the Enfield Poltergeist. In the years that followed, the family tried to rebuild their lives. They tried to move forward. They tried to forget the nightmare they had endured. Peggy Hodgson worked to provide stability for her children. She wanted them to have normal childhoods despite everything they had experienced. She wanted them to move past the trauma. The children returned to school. They made friends. They attempted to reintegrate into normal society. They tried not to be defined by what had happened in their house. They tried to be regular kids. Not the famous family from the Poltergeist case. Just normal children trying to live normal lives. But that wasn't entirely possible. The case had made them famous. People recognized them. People asked them about their experiences. People wanted to know if the phenomena was real. People wanted proof of the paranormal. They wanted Janet to explain. They wanted the family to validate their beliefs or admit their deception. The family largely remained silent. They declined interviews. They avoided publicity. They tried to disappear from public view as much as possible. Meanwhile, paranormal researchers continued to argue about the case. Books were written about the Enfield Poltergeist. Documentaries were produced. The case became legend in paranormal circles. Believers pointed to it as evidence that genuine paranormal phenomena exists. Skeptics pointed to it as an example of how fraud and psychological factors can fool trained investigators. The case became frozen in time, frozen at the moment of ambiguity, never definitively resolved, never definitively explained. But then, decades later, something significant happened. Janet Hodgson, now an adult, gave interviews about her experiences. Now grown, now removed from the trauma, now able to reflect on what happened with perspective. What she revealed complicated the story further. Janet acknowledged that she had indeed faked some of the phenomena. She admitted to moving objects deliberately. She admitted to creating some of the knocking sounds. But she maintained that genuine phenomena also occurred. That things happened in that house that she couldn't explain. That things happened when she wasn't even trying to create them. She described the experience as traumatic. She described feeling pressured by investigators. She described feeling exploited by media attention. She described struggling to distinguish between what was genuine and what she had created, between authentic phenomena and her own fabrications. She explained that she started faking things not because nothing real was happening, but because she felt the investigators wanted more, because she felt she had to meet their expectations, because she felt responsible for proving that genuine phenomena was occurring. It was a confession that didn't resolve anything. It didn't prove the case was genuine. It didn't prove the case was fraudulent. It simply added another layer of complexity to an already complicated story. In 2012, Peggy Hodgson passed away. The woman who had started this entire story by calling the newspapers. The single mother who had desperately sought help for her family. The woman who had endured media scrutiny and investigation for over a year. She was gone. The house at 284 Green Street still stands, but it's no longer the location of one of history's most famous paranormal cases. It's just a house. It's changed hands multiple times. Current residents are sometimes unaware of its history. The phenomena never returned. No subsequent owners have reported paranormal activity. It's just an ordinary house in an ordinary London neighborhood. But the legacy of the case remains. The debate continues. The questions remain unanswered. So what really happened at 284 Green Street? After nearly 50 years, after all the investigation, after all the analysis, after all the debate, what can we actually conclude? The evidence suggests this. Something unusual did occur in that house. Multiple credible witnesses observed phenomena that they couldn't explain through normal means. Investigators trained to identify fraud documented incidents that resisted simple explanation. Some of the phenomena appears to have been genuine. Some appears to have been fabricated. Some remains impossible to categorize. The phenomena likely involved a combination of factors. Genuine psychological phenomena, adolescent stress and trauma manifesting in unusual ways, probably some fabrication by Janet, definitely media influence and investigator bias, definitely the pressure of constant scrutiny affecting behavior and perception. But was it paranormal? Was it genuine contact with a dead man named Bill Wilkins? Was it possession? Was it demonic activity? Was it something that proves the paranormal is real? The honest answer is that we don't know, and we probably never will know with certainty. The case reveals something important about how we investigate the unexplained. It reveals that our expectations influence what we see, that our desire to believe or disbelieve affects our interpretation of evidence, that even trained investigators can be fooled, that ambiguity is often more common than definitive proof, that some mysteries may resist explanation no matter how thoroughly we investigate them. Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair spent 2 years investigating this case. They documented extensive evidence. They interviewed countless witnesses. They conducted rigorous observations. And at the end, they remained convinced that genuine paranormal phenomena had occurred. Yet skeptics within the scientific community remained unconvinced. They argued that the case had been compromised, that definitive proof had never been established, that the phenomena could be explained through psychology and fabrication. Both sides could point to evidence that supported their conclusions. Both sides could dismiss evidence that contradicted their conclusions. And the case became frozen in a state of permanent controversy, permanent debate, permanent ambiguity. Perhaps that's the real truth of the Enfield Poltergeist. Not that it definitively proves the paranormal exists, not that it definitively proves the paranormal doesn't exist, but that it reveals the genuine difficulty in investigating extraordinary claims, the genuine challenge of distinguishing real phenomena from fabrication, suggestion, and misinterpretation. What we know for certain is this: the Hodgson family experienced genuine trauma. Whether that trauma was caused by paranormal phenomena or psychological phenomena, the suffering was real. The fear was real. The disruption to their lives was real. Janet Hodgson was a 13-year-old girl who went through something extraordinary. Whether that something was supernatural or psychological or some combination of both, it affected her profoundly. She carried the experience with her into adulthood. She tried to make sense of it. She tried to reconcile what was real and what was fabricated. She tried to move forward from something that most of us could never imagine experiencing. The investigators involved in the case also faced real challenges. They were confronted with phenomena they couldn't easily explain. They had to balance healthy skepticism with openness to genuine evidence. They had to deal with media interference and public expectation. They had to attempt to conduct rigorous research in an environment that resisted such rigor. Some of them maintained their belief in genuine paranormal activity. Others became more skeptical. Others reached some middle ground where they acknowledged the phenomena was genuinely puzzling, but remained unconvinced that paranormal explanations were necessary. The legacy of the Enfield Poltergeist is not that it proves the paranormal, but that it reveals the complexity of paranormal investigation. It reveals how easily evidence can be misinterpreted, how easily fraud can be fabricated, how easily genuine phenomena can be confused with ordinary events, and how important it is to maintain healthy skepticism while remaining open to genuine mystery. In the end, the Enfield Poltergeist remains what it has always been, a mystery, a case that defies easy explanation, a story that different people interpret in different ways, depending on their beliefs and expectations. A reminder that some questions don't have definitive answers, that some mysteries persist despite investigation, that some events in human history remain genuinely ambiguous. If the phenomena was genuine, then we're forced to confront difficult questions about reality, about what's possible, about what we don't understand about the universe, about forces or entities that exist outside our normal experience. If the phenomena was fabrication, then we're forced to confront questions about why. Why would a traumatized girl create such an elaborate deception? What psychological needs was she meeting? What was she trying to communicate through fake paranormal phenomena? If the phenomena was some combination of both, then we're forced to confront the most difficult question of all. How do we distinguish truth from fabrication? How do we investigate the unexplained when our own expectations and desires influence what we see? How do we know what's real? These are the questions the Enfield Poltergeist leaves us with. These are the questions that have echoed through 50 years of debate. These are the questions that may never be fully answered. The house still stands. The family has moved on. The investigators have moved on. The media has moved on. But the mystery remains. The Enfield Poltergeist persists in our collective memory as a case that proves one thing definitively: that some mysteries are more complicated than we initially believe, that some questions resist easy answers, and that the truth is often far more ambiguous than we would like it to be. Thank you for joining me on this 5-part journey through one of history's most fascinating paranormal cases. Thank you for following the Hodgson family through their nightmare. Thank you for wrestling with questions that don't have easy answers. Thank you for watching StorySurvive. If you enjoyed this series, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And most importantly, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Do you think the Enfield Poltergeist was genuine paranormal activity? Or do you think it was psychological phenomena and fabrication? Do you have your own experiences with the unexplained? Share your thoughts. Let's discuss this together. Because that's what StorySurvive is all about. It's not about me telling you what to believe. It's about us exploring mysteries together. It's about asking questions. It's about wrestling with the unknown. It's about understanding that the world is far more complex and mysterious than we often give it credit for. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next episode of StorySurvive. The Enfield Poltergeist ends here, but the mystery continues, the debate continues, and the questions remain. Because that's the nature of genuine mystery. It persists, it challenges us. It reminds us that despite all our investigation and analysis, some things remain genuinely unexplained. And maybe that's exactly as it should be.